Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Well, it costs taxpayers in the state of Texas tens of millions of dollars a year to care for and maintain thousands of state-owned vehicles. Now, 11 News has learned a plan to reduce cost has taken a wrong turn. Reporter Dave Failing investigates what happened to the state's good intentions.
How many miles a year do you put on your car?
Roughly about, close to 8,500.
At the Sunrise Grocery near downtown, Manuel Ojeda is like a lot of us, putting thousands of miles a year on his car and hoping it lasts.
You're getting every mile out of that car you can then, and every mile out of the gallon.
Change the oil, the points, everything.
But could the same be said for the state of Texas? It owns thousands of vehicles. You see them sitting row after row in lots like this. But how much do state employees drive them? We got the data. It shows some state government vehicles are driven as little as a few thousand, even a few hundred miles a year. We analyzed the data for thousands of vehicles owned by the state of Texas and found that hundreds of them were not meeting the state's own guidelines for minimum usage. In other words, hundreds of vehicles that you help pay for, but which were not being used in some cases very much at all. We decided to look into this because the state legislature said it was a big problem a decade ago. Back then, the state was spending $100 million maintaining more than 32,000 vehicles. A study found compared to other states, Texas was using its vehicles well below the national average. Legislators responded, mandating that state-owned vehicles should be driven at least 11,000 miles a year. The idea was to get more use out of fewer vehicles. Lawmakers said they were led to believe it would save millions of dollars. But now, the key lawmaker who pushed the reforms tells 11 News it looked good on paper, but didn't work out. Here's what we found. A new fleet management office under the state comptroller is supposed to keep track of mileage for all agencies statewide. But we found the system was broken. For example, the Department of Transportation. When we asked for a list of vehicles not meeting the minimum mileage rule, the comptroller's office sent us this list of just 10 vehicles statewide. So we requested the raw data for over 4,000 vehicles, and we found more than 10. Try 771 TxDOT vehicles that violated the state's minimum mileage rule.
It was a very inaccurate system.
Ron Pygott oversees the state's fleet management program.
Definitely there was issues with the data not being correct.
Pygott says a new computer system put in place not long after we started looking into this last summer should help them find underused vehicles with much more accuracy. Bottom line?
So I can't tell you with any accuracy that we saved a lot of money.
We then asked the people who are on the front lines of spending your tax money.
I'm a taxpayer too.
Mike Stallings manages over 1,000 vehicles used by TxDOT in the Houston area.
We work real hard to try to meet that 11,000 mile usage.
But Stallings says they found that mileage isn't always the best measure.
So looking at just age or miles does not necessarily mean it's a bad piece of equipment.
They found that a lot of their pickup trucks don't rack up a lot of miles a year because they're used to drive up and down road projects that may only be a mile or two long. So to save money, they simply use vehicles many more years than had been recommended by a state study.
Now, this looks like a fairly old vehicle.
It's probably a 96 F-150.
Bottom line, he says they've now reduced the overall Houston fleet by 100 vehicles, roughly 10%, getting more miles out of older vehicles to save money. Manuel Ojeda,
I've had it 10 years.
could have told him that. Dave Failing, 11 News.